Good morning. Renee was asking what she's gotten herself into, and I've been asking myself the same. I'm an accountant. I sit behind a desk most days. I do not speak in front of other accounting and finance professionals, but we'll give it a go and share our story. Quick background on our organization and operations, what our data needs are, and how we leverage Multiview to achieve organizational independence. I'm the controller at the Heinz Endowments. We're a nonprofit private foundation in Pittsburgh. The endowment was established for philanthropic purposes in 1941, and this was from Howard Heinz, who bequeathed his estate. He was the son of H.J. Heinz, founder of the H.J. Heinz company that you may be familiar with. 4 decades later, H.J.'s daughter-in-law, Vyra, bequeathed her estate for the same philanthropic purposes. The two endowments merged in 2007 and operate today as one entity, the Heinz Endowments. Our business operations, our revenue we get is income from our endowment, so we don't take in any contributions from outside sources. We live on the assets that were originally gifted to us. Those assets in 1941 totaled about $5 million worth of H.J. Heinz company stock, and that has grown into a $1.7 billion diversified portfolio today. We have 228 different investments with 128 different managers. Our products are grants that we make to organizations in southwestern Pennsylvania whose charitable mission we support. We also make contributions directly into the community in the form of PRIs, which are program-related investments. So those are in form of investments and loans into the community. We have a requirement to distribute 5% of our assets annually, so that equates to about $80 million of outflows. Like all of you, we are stewards of our organizational assets. We exercise due diligence over our investment assets and spending to ensure resources are preserved for their intended purpose. So to do this, we need to know a few things. What are our assets? What are they valued at? And how are they performing? Those are our data needs. All organizations will differ in their level of sophistication used to track their data needs. Many foundations, nonprofit organizations are using separate systems to accomplish this. Some are using Excel spreadsheets, some are using multiple systems, GL, AP. Some are using different reporting systems. I'll share with you what the Heinz Endowments was using 5 years ago and where we got to today. So our story begins in 2013 with a change in leadership at the foundation. The CFO is new. In his second week at the foundation, he was delivered a stack of grant checks that totaled $12 million and was asked to sign them. And the first question he had was, well, how much cash do we have in our account? And I guess he got met with blank stares. The answer was, we don't know. We can show you last month's bank reconciliation, or we can wait until the current month bank statement comes in the mail a week after month end. But we always have 25 to 50 million in our account, so don't worry about it. The foundation's environment then were as such. There was no insight into operating cash. We used a third-party custodian to send our investment cash. So the role of our treasury assistant was not to move the cash, but to direct someone else to move it. So she would write instructions on letterhead. She would have the CFO sign that letterhead. She would call a courier to come pick up that letter, send it up the street to our custodian, who would then take a couple of days to process this. And this repeated multiple times every month. Our internal books were kept on cost basis only, so our accountant's role was to sit at the end of the month with about 15 to 20 custody statements, 4 bank statements, and record all of the transactions on those statements. As you can imagine, I needed a flow chart to understand the movement of cash when I first came, and it took her days at the end of the month to do this. Our valuations were maintained by a third party, so we have an external advisor that we work with for investment recommendations, and they were the only ones that actually kept what the value of our assets were. And our reporting was done annually by our auditors, who came in and compiled all the data from all these different sources into a set of financial statements that, as you know, are issued about 6 months after year end. So it's not giving you any current information. So the environment then is still what I imagine exists at some nonprofits and organizations today. A lot of times it's a resource issue. Do you have the appropriate staff? Do you have the appropriate systems? A lot of reliance is placed on third parties with the expertise and the systems. So your staff can do their jobs, they're just probably not doing it in the most effective and efficient way. So I'll note that my CFO came from the Hillman Company, which is more of a corporate investment environment. He was used to getting detailed information on the portfolio and daily insights. So for example, the type of information that he would get would be if a private company went public, they had their initial public offering. The organization knew which of their private equity investments had that company as a holding. They knew what it was valued at, and then they knew when the IPO happened what the impact to their portfolio was. And they knew it the day that it happened. The system they were using was Multiview. So from his experience, my boss knew that they could get better information, more timely, and have the staff play a bigger and a more valued role at the organization. He did his diligence. He talked to other foundations, organizations, researched other systems, and did come to the conclusion that Multiview was the best fit for us. So they had the capabilities that the foundation needed. They had a single system of financial accounting that could meet our needs. They could track and report on all of our assets. And I will tell you, this is the biggest issue we have in our industry, is finding a system that can do everything in one place. It had the ability to track private equity investments. So these are investments that have multiple holdings underneath, and we could get insight into seeing what's within the portfolio. Even our external advisor wasn't doing this for us. It had the cash management capabilities and controls. So with that, we could bring all of our cash processing in-house, and we could save $300,000 a year in custody fees. And that savings repeats year after year after year. And it could also integrate with our banks so that we could do automated bank reconciliations every day. So we no longer just had to rely on having $50 million in our bank account. I might have missed a slide here. No, I think we're good. So my role started at the endowments. I actually also came from the Hillman Company with experience in using Multiview, and I started with the Heinz Endowments in 2015. My role was to implement Multiview and basically redesign the jobs of everyone that had worked there. We got rid of all the paper. We made things more automated. So the first thing we focused on was getting all of our assets into the system. Did we track and could we track all of our assets? And the answer was yes. We moved to daily cash, so we used Multiview's business event workflow to process our cash, pay our operating expenses. And so the role of that treasury assistant went from telling someone else to do what to do to actually doing it herself. She got rid of all the paper, all the documents were scanned in and kept electronically in Multiview. And no longer did we basically pay for that courier. They had to come down the street and move all the paper around. The accountant went from doing reconciliations for 15 to 20 accounts at month end to doing daily cash reconciliations for us. So every day we knew how much money was in our account, and we could better put that to use in an investment. The second phase of our implementation, we moved to the valuation process. So this is something that no one at the organization had ever been a part of before. We again relied on Multiview's business event workflow and wizards to make the accounting entries. So you're going through a wizard, you're answering questions, you're creating accounting entries without even realizing that's what you're doing. So by the end of 2015, 7 months into our implementation, we had valued 2/3 of our portfolio. We had moved all the investment cash ourselves, which is about 400 transactions a year, $300 million. And for the first time ever, we produced monthly financial statements ourselves. And I'll stress that we did all of this with a staff of 3 people. We then moved to the second phase of our implementation. We added one staff person the next year from all the savings that we had from our custody arrangement, who focused on the private equity portfolio. We all got better, we got faster, we got more efficient, and we continue to tweak the system today. And even just last year, we interfaced we have to have a separate grants management system to track all of our grantees and all the reporting that goes along with that. And we had always cut the checks out of that system. And as you know, as any professional would want, you would all of your cash duties to be held in one account. So Multiview wrote an interface to get us the payment information from the grant system into Multiview, where we can now cut our checks, do the reconciliation, which has been a huge help. And really, in the last 2 years, we've been able to produce our own set of GAAP financial statements without any reliance on any third party. So the conclusions I'll share with you are outcomes. We've gained greater organizational independence. We're no longer reliant on third parties, and we have one system that holds all of our information. So we've gotten rid of all the reconciliations that we had to do between the custodies, accounts, the valuation accounts. Everything is housed within the same system. We can answer questions. We can generate our own opinion on performance. We can challenge our investment advisor, which is something we used to never be able to do. And we have a whole new level of insight into our portfolio. There's always continuous improvement. Multiview and the Hillman Company have been great, valued partners to us, and we continue to challenge each other on better ways to do things. And we're still challenging Multiview on advancing their capabilities, things like cash forecasting, liquidity management, PRI tracking. So who's going to be the change agent in your organization? Always believing in better, a culture of continuous improvement. People, I will say, people are generally resistant to change. I came into our accounting department who'd been there for a very long time. They were nervous. I was changing the way they did their jobs. But I will tell you, everyone is still there. They enjoy their jobs. They're working in a better way, and they know they're making a more valued contribution to the company. And that's our story.